This is Shelley Plumb, and welcome to the Resiliency Connection. I am really excited for this episode. I have been looking forward to it. I'll tell you what, I was researching for this episode, and I came across a movie. One of my favorite movies in the entire world. Some of you may know it, The Wizard of Oz. I mean, how many of you know that movie? If you don't, it's about this little girl, her name is Dorothy, and her dog, and they're whisked away by a tornado into the land of Oz. And it was just a magical movie for me. I mean, all the adventures that she had and all of the characters that she came across. Three in particular intrigued me, and I love to share them with you. The first is the scarecrow who didn't have a brain, and he wanted to go out and get a brain so bad, and he had problems because of his lack of a brain. And then we had the Tin Man, an actual Tin Man who was looking for a heart. And then my favorite in the entire world was the lion. And the lion had, so many problems because of a lack of courage. He was looking for courage. And I was thinking about that. And then I'm thinking about our topic today and wondering, you know what? The matters of the brain, the matters of the heart, the matters related to a lack of courage or fearlessness. Those type of things put obstacles in our way, don't they? They lead us to a place where sometimes we feel stuck. That is why I am so honored to have the next guest with us. We have Britt Frank with us. Now, Britt, if you're not familiar with her, she is a award-winning psychotherapist. She is a author of an incredible book called The Science of Stuck. Please join me in welcoming Britt Frank. How are you, Britt?
Hi, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you are amazing. You're amazing. Do you like The Wizard of Oz? Let me ask you.
I mean, I'm calling in from Kansas today, so I'm going with a big yes.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So you, and I didn't allude to it in the introduction, but you have an amazing story. You definitely, my friend, walk the walk when it comes to being stuck and getting unstuck. Can you give our viewers just a little synopsis of where you came from and how you wrote the book?
Oh my goodness, my yellow brick road was not quite so pleasant as Dorothy's journey. Mine was a road filled with drug addiction and childhood abuse and very, very chaotic, toxic relationships and a big mess in reaction to all of that stuff. And so, like many people, I came to doing this work as a clinician from doing the work as a recovering human. And I just fell in love with all of the information. So I quit my corporate job and went back to graduate school. And here we are.
I love that. And your book really, I mean, for viewers out there, we're going to put where you can get her book down at the bottom here so that you can see it, The Science of Stuck. Britt, it's an incredible book. It really is. So let's talk about the scarecrow, first of all, you know, the matters of the brain or the mind. Can our mind really facilitate us being stuck and getting unstuck?
I love that question so much. And what I love about the scarecrow is that he thought that he needed a brain, but he turned out to be pretty smart the whole time. And that is very much what I found in my journey and in my journeys with clients is that often the thing that we think we're missing has been there the whole time. We just don't know how it works because I don't know about you. I was never taught, hey, here's your brain, and here's how your brain can actually assist you with being stuck and going nowhere, or just like a car with no gas, or if you know how to fill the tank, you can get up and running. So many of the things I thought made me broken were actually just me not knowing how brains work. And so I really love that you teed this off with the Wizard of Oz analogy.
Oh, I love that. And then as far as the heart, and I'll speak from my standpoint, there is times in my life where my mind was saying, Shelley, you are at this obstacle and you need to either go through it, around it, or over it. But my mind is saying, here's how to do it. And my heart is saying, no, I don't think so. So let's talk about that. How does the heart or things that we really intuitively know we should or shouldn't do, how does that play into it?
Oh, how many of us are familiar with the I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm not doing it. What's wrong with me? Or this idea that my mind is telling me one thing, but my heart is telling me another. And what's wonderful about this work is you learn that there is a third entity at play. It's not mind versus heart, it's brain informs mindset, informs heart. And so, fortunately, again, it's like learning to drive a car. If you understand the very basics, you don't need advanced training to drive a car and you don't need advanced training to drive your brain. But if you know that your brain has a shutdown mechanism, that's going to help, particularly if you've got matters of the heart. If you're grieving, that's not a mindset issue. That's a very physical, physiological issue. Depression is not purely a mindset issue. It's a physical one. And so really calling these things mental health is a misnomer because we live in physical bodies that do physical things. And if you don't know how brains work, when your heart starts yelling, it's going to feel almost impossible to get unstuck. And that's why I love teaching these very simple tools. The simple science for big results of getting unstuck.
That's incredible. I actually have a surprise for you. We have the infamous Joy Miller with us today. How are you, Joy?
I'm doing great, and I'm so excited to see both of you.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And it's always wonderful to see you as well. So, Joy, we're talking about matters of the mind and matters of the heart as it relates to us being stuck in our life. What do you have any input with that?
Well, first of all, I'm blown away that you started with the story you did, because my first book was a takeoff on The Wizard of Oz. So it just is so fitting. And I think as it speaks to the matters of the heart and the mind, Britt has this amazing ability to find like the balance. And I think that's what's missing for so many people. We're either in our head or we're in our heart, and we feel like we have to listen to one or the other. And her book really talks about how to really balance those things and to listen intuitively and intellectually about choices. And that's what I love about her book. The first moment I saw it, it was like, this is the kind of book I like because I can write all over it. And there's little tiny elements that you can do. And, I just ate it up because she really knows how to integrate those two parts together.
Yes, no, I would agree. And Britt, I will tell you that we have had guests reach out for our production company just with questions here and there. And one in particular, some people get stuck. And it's so overwhelming that sometimes they give up or feel like giving up. What would you say to those people? Are there any tips that you would lend them if you are so overwhelmed that you're like, I'm just not going to do any of it?
Well, I'll first say that feeling so overwhelmed that you don't want to do anything does not make you broken. That makes you human. That is a very human dilemma. And again, if you know how the brain works, you can implement very simple solutions. And I'll give you my favorite one. And again, life's not easy, and dealing with the complexity of pain and society, that's not easy. But when it comes to dialing down the overwhelm so we can get ourselves from stuck to go, that tool is easy, fortunately, and I call it micro yesing your way. A micro yes is a step so small, it feels silly and ridiculous to do. It's smaller than a small step. It's smaller than a baby step. Like take the smallest possible thing you can think of and then cut that into quarters. That's your micro yes. So I'll give you an example. Someone who wants to get fit. I can't even bring myself to take a walk around the block at the end of the day because I just feel so overwhelmed by these fitness goals. Great. Don't take a walk. That's a baby step and that's too big, which is fine because brains don't like big. Instead, a micro yes would be put your left sneaker by the door and that's it. And then the next day, put your right sneaker by the door and that's it. And every day you add a teeny tiny little micro yes, and eventually, quicker than you'd think, those micro yeses compounds and then they generate the motivation that we're looking for. Most people think I need motivation to start, and that's not how motivation works. Motivation kicks in after you start, not before. Micro yeses solve for that sticky place where you really want to do a thing, but you don't feel like doing the thing at all. A micro yes will get you going in almost any situation.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that because in today's day and age, especially in the day and age of self-care, there is a lot talked about with the power of saying no, right? But I will tell you, I've experienced that power of the micro yes after reading your book, right? Because it's liberating. I went one day, well, now more days, but I went one day, my first day of doing, okay, I'm going to do a micro yes all day. On something. It was incredible. Joy, have you done that before?
I try because usually my goals are too big, and as Britt said, I really have to break them down. And truly finding the smallest little thing, it starts you off on a positive note. And I think that's what we all need because we make our goals too big and then we fail.
Yeah, no, that's very true. What do you think of that, Brett?
It's true, and it's not a moral issue, and I think so many people feel this shame of why can't I do the thing? And often the answer is there's nothing wrong with you. It's like your digestion. Anytime you take a step too big, it can overwhelm your brain's ability to digest. So we break these steps into the smallest possible components. And what I love about what you said, Shelley, about how we're all taught to say no more, that's true. But every time you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else, and saying yes does different neurological things than saying no. And if you try it out loud, you'll feel it. Say no and then say yes. They feel different somatically or in your body. And so rather than I'm focusing on what I need to say no to, switch your focus on what you're saying yes to, and your brain will like that and give you a little bit more runway to move.
Oh my goodness. Energetically, it feels differently, doesn't it?
It does. And they've studied that. There's the energy feeling, but there's also different brain chemicals that happen when you say no versus when you say yes. The word no can evoke your fight, flight, freeze response. The word yes is expansive and open and allows for possibilities, all of which give you access to the parts of your brain that you want being in charge of your life.
Oh, that's incredible. Actually, the fight, the flight, and the freeze response reminds me of our beloved lion in the story, right? With frantically looking for courage. So, can we talk about fear now and how that relates to being stuck in our lives?
Sure. And I think one place that's so important to name is that fear and anxiety are not the same thing. And we often use those words interchangeably, and the difference matters. It's not just about, being a nitpicky wordsmithing person, even though I am. When you're talking about fear, that's tied to a specific thing. I am afraid that the bear is going to eat me. That's fear. I am afraid that I'm going to lose my job and have no money. That's fear. Anxiety feels similar to fear because it's uncomfortable and you feel edgy and you feel this sense of dread. But anxiety is not tied to any particular thing. Anxiety is simply an indicator light that there's a problem. I say anxiety is like the check engine light on the car. Like fear, that what the problem is because I feel fear because this thing. Anxiety is not a disorder. Anxiety is a symptom. It's an indicator that points toward a problem.
Interesting. I love that. I have never heard that take on it. That's fascinating. What do you think, Joy?
I always love the way Britt can take something and she can just break it down so it's in this simple form. And she's just a master. Britt, you blow me away
Oh,
because
she blows me away too. She's incredible.
you can always just say it the perfect way. I mean, there are some people who can do it and you're the one. Man, you really can help people. I've really seen it.
Thank you. I received that. My heart is so full having this conversation. And I was talking to someone else. I can do words. That's my gift. But I'm so glad that other people can do other things because I've over-indexed on the words thing, and there are plenty of things I don't know how to do, like produce a podcast. And I'm so glad other people are acting from their gifts because we all have gifts and strengths to share. And if I believed the narrative very early on that I was broken, we wouldn't be here. And so it's so important for me to share with people that it's often the things that we think make us broken that are the parts of our brain trying to help us. There's no such thing as a broken person.
That's that. Along those lines, Britt, I was thinking, I have spent part of my life thinking that I was broken as well. And, hearing you speak, I wonder, and I relate it back to specific people that actually told me that I was broken. Where does that come from? Why do certain people tell other people that they're broken or something's wrong with them? Where does that come from?
Well, we could spend hours unpacking that and whiteboarding that, but I can answer that in a single word, which is trauma. What doesn't get healed repeats. So, if someone grew up hearing that they were terrible and they do not interrupt that pattern with their own healing work, they're going to repeat what they learned. And then they'll tell their children they're terrible. And those children will have children that are told they're terrible. And so generational trauma is a big, big driver of these long-standing systemic things that we see in families.
That's interesting. Luckily for me, my family were very supportive. The people telling me I was broken was colleagues, and sometimes friends who are not friends anymore. But I love what you say, and I'm going to definitely pass that on. Joy, can you comment on that? Do you think there's any such thing as being fearless?
Fearless. That's a really good question. You know, I was back on the whole thing of, what you were talking about moments ago. Because if you think about the Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch, everybody said she was bad, but she was only protecting her family, and she was protecting what was, hers. And I think that too often we look at people, whether it's out of jealousy or fear or envy, and we lash out, and then we hear it and we believe what somebody's saying, and it's their issue, not ours, but we
Ah.
take it on as our own.
That is true. Sometimes I can speak from my own standpoint. We ruminate on it, and that's a bad habit of mine. I mean, Britt, for people who can't get those negative thoughts out of their head, what would you recommend?
Well, going back to your question about fearlessness, I don't think
Uh-huh.
it's good to be fearless. Fear is a biological hardwiring mechanism that allowed us to evolve and survive the wild.
Mhm.
So like the task is not be fearless. The task is be able to move through it without getting stuck and shut down or freeze. So that's my thing with the fearlessness piece. But to your other question about, what do we do with the negativity? One of my favorite little hacks, if you will, for negative thinking is to ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how true is this? Because if we're in this binary, like if I'm telling myself nothing ever works out for me, if it's either true or it's not true, and I think it's true, there's nothing that can be done. But if on a 1 to 10, I say, how true is it? I'll probably discover that sometimes that could be true, but not always. And so those scaling kinds of questions, instead of saying, is it true? Ask, how true is it? That will give you a lot more maneuverability. And how true is it works with almost any negative thought, because likely there's a little element of truth. No one's going to like you. Well, that's probably a little bit true because not everybody will. So if I scale it on a 1 to 10, I'll discover it's not a 10. It's not everybody, but it's a few people. I can work with that. I can work with a scaled situation rather than this binary of it's true or it's untrue. So for every negative thought, ask yourself, how true is it? And then grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10.
I like that. You know what that does too, is it segments it. It puts it in perspective. It puts it into bite-sized pieces that you can digest easily and really commit to memory. What do you think, Joy?
Yeah, I love that idea. And it's something that I wish I used more often. Sometimes I do look at, black or white, and that really reminds me the importance of just kind of scaling it and looking at it from a different perspective.
Absolutely. So sadly, we're running out of time. But Britt, for those people out there, I know that we have viewers and listeners out there that are at a point where they are stuck in their life. And many, myself I've been there, where you feel almost hopeless and like there is no way where to turn. No one cares. What type of advice would you leave them with to get unstuck?
Well, if you have a brain and you're alive listening to this, no matter how bad you feel, it's safe to assume that your brain is on your side and it's kept you alive because you're not broken. And there's very few situations where nothing can be done. Those situations exist, but for most people's stuckness, there's almost always a micro yes that can be done. And every time you micro yes, you get a little micro dose of feel good juice. And so if you're feeling hopeless, the fastest way to access your hope juice is to do something where you can bank a win, because we all need a win. And sometimes we need to make those wins microscopic, but it doesn't matter how small the win is. A win is a win, and stuck becomes unstuck as soon as you start saying yes to things. And I'm certainly, a good person to say, I thought it was hopeless and that healing and change and happiness were for other people, not me. And here we are.
Oh my goodness, that's great words of advice. Now, both of you ladies, there is a quote that I wanted to leave you with and maybe get a comment from you on. It's actually from the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz. You guys ready? Okay, she says, and she's talking to Dorothy, she says, "You always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it yourself." What do you think of that, Britt?
I remember watching, and that's one of my favorite movies. I kind of wanted to punch the Good Witch in the face sometimes when I was in early recovery, if I'm being totally honest, because it seemed mean. Like I had this, like all she had to do is click her heels. And what is this entire 3-hour journey about? Like that was mean, lady. You should have told her. But having gone through the process of healing, not fully healed, but healing, I get why that's important, because sometimes you don't believe things until you have a chance to learn them for yourself. So I no longer wish to punch Glinda in the face.
Okay, that's good. That is her name, right? Glinda. What do you think, Joy?
Well, I think if anyone can teach the lessons, it's Britt and you too, Shelley, because you're two of the most positive people that I know. And you both have this amazing ability to look at things from the other side and to see that it's always been within you. And that's why I love you. And I have to say that I'm excited that at the Resiliency 2024, Britt has promised to do an experiential exercise with everyone. And that's going to be something new for this year. And I'm thrilled she's going to do it, because you can see how she can take something and really teach you something in a short period of time and change your life. So thank you, Britt.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you, Shelley. This is so fun.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Britt, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And for all of you out there, we want to thank you as well. And Joy, it's always a pleasure to have you. It's always a joy to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all this. It's wonderful.
And for all of you out there, we are thrilled that you could join us for another episode of the Resiliency Connection. This is Shelley Plumb. Please don't forget to register for Resiliency 2024. And if you love this presentation today by Britt, you are going to absolutely be blown away in September 12th when she gives her presentation. We are certainly very, very excited. After today, I am going to go ahead and write down some tips that Britt put together and read through her book and really go from stuck to unstuck. I'm excited. I hope that you are as well. So until next time, this is Shelley Plumb. We'll see you on the next episode of the Resiliency Connection.